Now, we do have a developing situation in the NFL. Apparently, this according to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, that the Giants and Saquon Barkley have agreed to terms on a one-year deal worth up to $11 million. So, apparently that Zoom call really got some things done in the NFL, because Saquon Barkley got himself a little bit of a pay bump off the $10.1 million.
But it's not the 14 that they were offering him, correct?
I mean, no, but they can't do anything about that anymore.
They can't do the long-term deal. They could offer him 14 for this year.
That's what I'm saying. Like, wouldn't that make sense to me, it's like, what's this all about? It's like, if you settle for $11 million to get back in, what's it all about? You lost 3.
Here are the details from Ian Rappaport on the deal. So he says the Giants and star running back Saquon Barkley, they agree to terms on a new one-year deal worth up to $11 million. Barkley gives himself a chance to beat the franchise tag. He gets a $2 million signing bonus. And so he goes on to say, obviously not the long-term answer, blah, blah,
so
blah.
It's not $11 million guaranteed either.
No.
No. It is.
Is it?
It is.
But it's not the money he was seeking, but the deadline passed. So at least it's a bump over the 10.1 that he was going to get from the franchise tag.
Right. And the other thing is if it's 10.1, this accomplishes 2 things. So when you play under the tag, you're being paid that salary, and you're getting paid every 2 weeks. Whereas if he's getting a signing bonus, he's getting $2 million right now. And that not only helps them a little bit for this year's cap, but also gives him cash up front. And he can earn the rest of the other $9 million he's owed throughout his salary throughout the course of the year. So helps their salary cap, gives him cash up front, and it pays him a little bit more than he was scheduled to make.
But it pays him a lot less than what they offered him and took it off of the table.
Reported.
Correct.
So when is the first time they can redo his deal? What date is that?
Well, technically he's going to be staring into free agency. Now, they could tag him a second time, right, and he'll get paid 120% of what he was, paid this year. But that would then drag out into the summer again before they.
He can't. But he can negotiate a longer deal at what point in time? Can he do like an extension or a new deal altogether?
Again, so he has to get to the new league year, which once they would, the Giants have a decision one of 2 ways. They can tag him a second time, where they then open the window to agree to a long-term deal, or he hits free agency.
Right. So he has to wait an entire season.
March of 2024 is when whatever the start of the new league year would begin, would be when the Giants would have to then place or designate him with a second franchise tag.
And so if I'm the Giants, don't you get another opportunity to see if Saquon can stay healthy and be productive, and then you just offer what you offered before, right? I mean,
does this wipe out the franchise tag? So is this not considered the because Rappaport is saying that when a player doesn't do a long-term deal by the mid-July deadline, the only option is a one-year deal, but the two sides can negotiate that one-year franchise tag into a one-year new contract. It's very rare, but that's what happened here. Smart on all sides. So this
still allows them to he's still under the tag.
Okay,
it's just a different negotiated deal, and then they'll have the chance to do again next year. But if they tag him a second time, it'd be 120% of this year's salary. So instead of off the 10.1, it'd be off the 11 million.
How the hell you know all that? How you know that?
It's my job.
That's what he does.
You know what's interesting about it, for at least the running back position, though, is it does put him up into, I want to say, I don't know, what, fourth? Or excuse me, maybe, if he gets is he getting 11 million or like 11.1?
It says 11, yeah.
So he's essentially tied for third with Alvin Kamara. Like, that's what this is, for this year at least. That's the number that it's putting him up next to.
And only McCaffrey and Henry are ahead of that, right?
Yeah, although the interesting thing about that is Bijan Robinson, at least based on total cash he gets this year because of where he was selected in the top 10, he will be getting $13.7 million this year in total cash.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
This deal, though, the fact that they came to terms on this, I always got the feeling that Saquon Barkley, the last thing he wanted was to miss any time. I think he wanted to be there with him. I think like Josh Jacobs.
He's such a good dude.
It seems like it. And Jacobs feels like the complete, not that Jacobs is a bad guy, but he seems like he's dead set on, no, I'm not showing up. If I'll show up very last minute to make sure I get paid my franchise tag, but no, I'm going to go ahead and sit this one out. And Barkley felt like he was really disappointed that they weren't able to get something done.
I get the sense of this, though, with the Giants. I feel like they weren't that far off, which it doesn't matter now, right? You can blame either side you want of who should have caved in and paid a little more here or maybe taken less here. It's beside the point now. But they are trying to do right? They just gave him a $2 million up front. They're giving an extra $1 million than he was going to make. And maybe it's a potential little offering for, hey, look, we want you to have a great year. We'd love to sign you to a long-term deal. Let's revisit this next year. We're going to have to pay you more either way if they slap him a franchise tag underneath them. I just get the sense that if you look at the Giants organization, how they handled things with Daniel Jones, and then this move here, it just lends me to think that they're trying to work with the player more. Like they would love to see him play really well this year and happily pay him again next year. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but that's more of my sense for how the Giants are looking at it.
That's how they operate too, by the way.
There was a player, I'm not going to say who it was, but I remember him telling me he got sick. I think he had like mono or something like that where he really couldn't do much or like help out the team. They kept him on for an additional week. Paid him, took care of, make sure he was like okay before they ended up letting go of him. They really had no use for him at the time. And I remember him telling me, like, he's like, dude, you would never find a team that would do something like that.
The Giants are so first class, man.
Yeah.
They're very, very well managed organization. So
very well run. I mean, that's great ownership. They've obviously had a huge impact. But and this isn't a knock on Mark Davis and comparing the two. I just think when you look at how the Raiders are operating, you get the sense that they're trying to run more of a business. It doesn't feel like they're trying to work with Josh Jacobs and his agent as much, at least in this regard. And look, maybe I'm wrong in that sentiment. Maybe this is just the line in the sand that these two sides have drawn, and that's how the negotiation is going to work. It does, from all reports, it looks like Josh Jacobs and his crew were very far apart from where those two sides were trying to come. So that could play a part of it too. Maybe it's the negotiations in Las Vegas got a little nastier between the Raiders and Josh Jacobs. And that's why he's separating himself, as opposed to things with the Giants where look, they were not that far off. They couldn't figure out a deal. They incentivized him to come back a little bit, and they punted next year.
I mean, good for the Giants, good for Saquon Barkley, at least on the short term, and good for Daniel Jones, because I think everybody feels a lot more optimistic about their chances with Saquon Barkley as opposed to just rolling out there without him and then see what you got.
Man, can you imagine, though, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones.
Yes.
If he doesn't have a big year, it's only going to make the decision to not sign Saquon to a longer-term deal, because it's only going to get more expensive, right? If they agree to a long-term deal with him next offseason, it's going to be more expensive, because the basis of that longer-term deal, it would have to – and this is probably why it's not going to work out, why he may end up hitting free agency or just plays again under the franchise tag for a second year, is because if you're an agent, you have to be walking to the team saying the next 2 years of a long-term agreement have to mimic what the franchise tag for a second year and a franchise tag for the third year look like. That's the basis of our discussion. And if you can't at least provide us an offer with that in the first 2 years, we're not going to agree to anything, right? And that's what you're staring at. That's what the team's staring at. And so I'd look at it and say, yeah, then I'll just play under the franchise tag for another year, and I'll hit the free agent market after that. Because, we haven't seen anyone be franchise tag for 3 years straight.
Yeah. So this is the latest development with the NFL and the New York Giants and Saquon Barkley. If you're just tuning in, Saquon Barkley agrees to a reworked deal. It's a 1-year deal, so he will be with the Giants this upcoming year. It gives him a little bit more than the franchise tag number, which was the $10.1 million, or just under $10.1 million, $10.09 to be exact. But who cares? Saquon Barkley is there for at least this year with the New York Giants, and that is the latest out of the NFL. That story just breaking a short time ago here.